review. Book 101's all about the bookstore ride for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is seeking to bring out the best in people, experienced podcast hosts and guests, and the podcast host of 5 a.m. No other than Mr. Michael Klassen.
Yes, sir. Great to be here. Thank you, Daniel.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Michael. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to. I spent a lot of my career in broadcasting, working on sports, news, those kinds of things. But at the same time, it actually took me 10 years to get my first full time job. So there was a lot of side hustles and two or three jobs at a time. There was a lot of that determination and persistence to get to a spot where I could get that full time work. And I thought that was my goal. And
Mm,
as you do, you work your way through the career. And as I had been doing that for many, many years, recently my position was terminated. I was a senior broadcast producer in Canada. And as it happens, positions come and go. And
yes.
I wasn't one to take that lying down. And my wife and I already had a 5 a.m. podcast. We had the domain and we were doing motivational articles. Didn't have time for the audio visual. But I came home and my wife and I agreed that now was the time to strike while that iron's hot. And we developed 5 a.m. podcast, the audio visual part of it. And yeah, we've been going strong and just meeting a lot of great people and just spreading some positivity.
Meeting great people and, of course, empowering people all over the world. Thank you, Mr. Michael, for sharing your podcast to the world. Let's talk about the books and personal growth that influence your journey. What's one
Mm.
book that fundamentally reshaped how you approach life or work, and why?
Yes. Well, I would say the Bible, but of course that's number one. But Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I'll mention one other one, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. But I will say that during some difficult, challenging times, I found the Napoleon Hill book, Think and Grow Rich, and there was a phrase in that book that stuck out to me to this day. And Napoleon Hill says that there is more gold and wealth that comes from the minds of men than comes from the minds of the earth. And that struck me. And I thought, boy, oh boy, I have got to work smarter and not harder. And in that book, he talks a lot about mining. He's got a little section in there where he's talking about mining. And and then of course our thoughts and how our thoughts become words and actions. So I would say that that was a very transformative book, other than the Bible, of course, that really shaped the way I thought about my future and how I needed to conduct myself if I wanted to get where I wanted to go.
Totally agree with you, Mr. Michael. And the Bible and Napoleon Hill book are featured in my first season, people. So
Ah,
please do listen to them. And Mr. Michael, how has reading helped you to develop skills that are not directly book related, like emotional intelligence or resilience?
mm. Well, when I was much, much younger, I heard somebody say that the stuff that gets into our gray matter in between our ears, that's like one thing that can never be taken away from us. And so when we think about our eye gates and our ear gates, we know that the Bible says faith comes by hearing. But through the eyes, when we can read and we can learn best practices, and I used to think we get mad at maybe parents or spouses or teachers when they can't give us something that they don't have. And we ask them for something. Like if I was to ask you, Daniel, for an apple, I'd be like, man, I'd love to, but I don't actually have an apple here within reach to give it to you. Man, it's not for me to be upset with Daniel. I have to realize that it's okay. Daniel would love to give me that apple if he had it. But if he doesn't have it, man, I got to help him get an apple. And so when we read books, we get those thoughts and those ideas of other people, and it just helps to raise our boats in the harbor.
Mr. Michael, what's the most intuitive lesson you've learned from interviewing authors about achieving success or fulfillment?
Humility and attitude.
Yes.
I would say that in a nutshell. That and it's counterintuitive because sometimes we mix up what humility actually is. And we can have that confidence, and we have confidence that we can reach our goals. And so we know we have this belief that no matter where we go, we're going to be focused on our goals, and we're going to be focused on what we know our abilities are, but we're going to be humble enough to learn and to understand that we don't have all the answers and we need to ask for help. And sometimes that is like the hardest thing, asking for help. And we
True.
don't want to appear weak, and I can just imagine for I live in Canada. There's lots of immigration that's been happening over the years, and there's some really challenging times living in Canada that I'm sure many people who come here are not prepared for. And I often think how hard it can be sometimes for people to have to ask for help from those multi-generational Canadians, and that concern if you're going to be accepted or not. And so we just have to reach out.
Reach out, people. Reach out. Ask help. If you need help, how do you balance consuming knowledge through books with taking action to apply it?
Oh boy, isn't that that's like the $1 million question, Daniel, because
Indeed.
we can read these books. I've got two books like right over there behind the monitor, and I know that there's some great advice in there. And I was telling a younger fellow at church, there's weeds in every garden, and sometimes you eat the meat and spit out the bones. But the big thing is that you're consuming it, and then you actually have to put it into practice. We have to put feet to those thoughts. And somebody once said you got to put feet to your prayers. And I know that I don't want the time I spend reading a book, I don't want it to be in vain. So I want to be able to take notes and keep kind of a ledger of the things that stick out to me, so that I can look back and remind myself of the things that I've read and say, "Oh, man, I'm missing the mark, but I read about hitting that mark somewhere." And we know that we can't, like the Bible says, don't just be hearers of the word, be doers of the word. And that was always something in our family growing up as a child, to be not only listening but doing what we hear and doing what we read.
Yes, indeed. People, the Bible and Think and Grow. These are highly recommended to read. So, Mr. Michael, let's
Mhm.
talk about intentionality, discipline, and goals.
Mm.
You've mentioned working intentionality. What's a recent goal you have to recalibrate because you have distractions or setbacks?
Mm. Wow. Excellent question. Because this is something I think that affects everyone. And certainly for me, I have to be intentional that I don't let the distractions around me um, kind of lead me off in another path. And growing up and early in my career, I always wanted to be the helper dude. I wanted to be the person that could oh, you call on because Michael will help you. Like he's a good dude. He's gonna help you out. He'll take care of you. But what I realized is I started working on too many other people's projects instead of my own. And I wasn't finding people to help me with my projects, my goals. And so what I did is I didn't have goals. My goal I thought was to do X, Y, and Z, and I ended up not doing those because I was too busy helping people and I was trying to make connections and relationships. But what it took me a little while to realize was that I was torpedoing my plans because I wasn't sticking to my goals. And I needed to kind of put the brakes on and realize that I had a problem. I was too helpful and I was getting into a lot of different things, but it was actually taking me away from what I really wanted to do. And hopefully that answers your question.
Indeed, very well said, Mr. Michael. Very well said. Beautifully articulated. How does your morning routine, like the 5 a.m. concept, tie into your broader philosophy about discipline and goal setting?
Hmm. It's huge. Absolutely. It's the foundation of the day. And whether I get up when I want to or I'm sleeping in because the bed is so comfortable and it's cold out, like
Yes.
on a January morning, you can hear the wind howling, and man, it's nice to stay in those covers and think there's a lion in the street. I'm not going out there, but we can't do that. We really have to be have that intentionality and the goal of I'm going to get up, and when I get up, I already know what I'm going to do. I've already decided that I have a foundation built for my day. And so I have to spend my time in prayer and meditation. I have to take care of that spiritual component and set the course for the day that way. And then I have to get up and I have to do my physical routine of going for a bike ride or doing my exercises or other things like that, making sure that I am not short circuiting for the short term gain for a long term payoff. And so my morning routine, if I don't do it, I totally know. If I get out of bed, get ready really quickly and then come and sit down in front of the computer. And by that time, maybe, I don't know, 7 o'clock, something like that. And I'm just thinking, okay, I skipped a bunch of stuff that I feel is foundational to my day. And now I feel like I'm trudging through mud trying to get this work done, and I've realized that I've sabotaged this success for that day. And we only get one crack at that day. So we got to make it good and intentional.
How do you design goals to rely on systems, not fleeting
Mm,
motivation?
yes. Well, I'll show you something here. I've got so we're working we one our number one download at
Yes.
5ampodcast.com has been our smart goal worksheet.
Yes.
And I knew firsthand that I needed goals, but then I realized I needed a way that my goals could actually uh, be developed and pushed through regardless of what was going on around me. And so we we want our goals that SMART actually stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And so what we're working on now is actually changing our one sheet that we had as a download to being a workbook for people, because I realized one sheet was not enough for me, and I kind of figured one sheet's probably not enough for other people. And so this our sheet that's coming up actually even brings accountability into it, because I found for me that's what I was lacking. And I could file my worksheet somewhere, my goal worksheet. I could put it somewhere and then I forget about it, and I didn't have accountability to myself, and so I needed to bring somebody in. And so we've added a few pages to it, and we're currently working on finalizing the workbook. It'll be about 75 pages. There's going to be like Sudoku puzzles in it, coloring pages, some word searches, and journal pages, as well as probably about 6 to 8 pages just with our goal worksheet, so that it helps people to have accountability, and it also helps people to track it and to keep themselves honest to their self and their goals and intentions for the future.
Well, Mr. Michael, good luck for that podcast, and I
Thank
hope
you.
people more empower. And let's talk about
Yeah.
lessons from authors and creators. What
Oh.
surprising daily ritual or habit you observe in successful authors
Mm.
that listeners could adopt?
Well, I will tell you, you and I are both on Podmatch, and
Yes.
the people that I have met through Podmatch have been phenomenal people.
True.
And what I've noticed, and every, everyone has their story of what they expected life to be like, what they hoped life to be like, and then the reality of it all. And sometimes life comes and just takes the wind out of your sails, or knocks you down a few rungs on the ladder, and you're holding on for dear life, hoping that you're going to make it. And then we find some other people that despair of life itself. And some of the people that I've met on Podmatch have marvelous stories. And as you asked me that question, and as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about Jim Tracy. And Jim Tracy doesn't. He lives in Idaho. He's not that far away from where we live, and he has a great line that I have used multiple times. If
Yes.
it's to be, it's up to me. And when he said it, I thought, man, that encapsulates what I've been trying to do for many years. If it's to be, it's up to me. And so even thinking from like a Christian point of view of creation and God setting this world in motion and telling people to take dominion, or if you want to think of other terms or philosophies of people realizing this is my goal. This is what I'd like for my family. This is what I'd like for future generations. It's been said that a man who plants a tree doesn't plant it for himself, he plants it for the next four generations. And so as we
Indeed.
go through life, it is that idea that if it's to be for the next generation or the generation after that, it's up to me. And I'm going to make sure that I leave something, whether it's intellectual property or physical property, something else that's going to make those future generations' lives easier.
Again, Mr. Michael, very well said.
Thank you.
Empowering
Thank you very much.
answer. Truly, indeed. But before we go on to our
Sure.
discussion, I want to shout out my, let's say, my top five countries listening
Okay.
to my ranking tops in the last 30 days because in Mali,
Wow.
I'm number nine on the Apple chart.
Wow.
United Arab Emirates 11, El Salvador, Uruguay, Norway, Canada 30, Slovenia, and many
Wow.
more. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast
Okay.
is created to empower writers, authors, podcast hosts, and many more that empowers people all over the world. So,
Well,
Mr.
wonderful.
Michael, let's talk
Yes.
about the smart evolution. Why did you feel the old smart goal system needed an upgrade? And what gaps does the new version address?
Well, the big thing was that accountability and limiting distractions, because we can have great intentions and we write
Yes.
down and we follow it through. We have specific goals, we make sure they're time bound, we make sure all these other things. But then I was realizing for myself, and I figured it was so popular with people that came to our site. We get I don't know, 600 to 1,000 people every single day, unique visitors to our website. So
Yes.
we get great traffic, and we just found that people were looking not just for setting goals, but they were actually like, so part of what we put in was purpose finder of of let's say you want goals and you're a little bit cloudy on a few of the details. So that's why we put in the purpose finder. And then what is our limiting belief? And I know growing up for me, man, I had a lot of limiting beliefs, and part of it was because of all the competitive people around
Likewise.
me who
Yes.
they wanted the same things as me. And then we realized that we want to make sure we help people not only do their goals but understand why they're doing their goals. And then once they kind of get that purpose finder, they get the accountability. And then how do we measure? It's been said that if you can measure something, you can control it. So another component of what we put in is being able to measure what we're doing so that we can say, oh man, this is where I'm missing the mark. And so this really helps us to evaluate what we're doing, what we're thinking. And then of course accountability, I've already mentioned that. But when we have this checklist and we've written these things down, we have that connection from the brain through the hand to the pen and paper. And so it just makes it feel so much more not only doable and actionable, but something that, oh man, I am going to hold myself accountable, and I'm actually going to have people who are going to help me as well. And now, one of the problems that I've had in the past, I learned this from personal experience, ladies and gentlemen, is
Yes.
telling too many people about my goals.
Oh, yes.
Because we have that idea of the negative Nancy, of somebody that is just like, man, it's kind of like if they could be, they'd be covered in dirt, shuffling their feet, kind of kicking stones around. And sometimes they find those stones and they throw them at our windows or our heads. And they say, man, come on, Michael, I've known you my whole life. You cannot do that. You are not, I mean, just give up now. Just, there's a story in the Bible of the Israelites going to build those walls, and those guys
Mm,
come along who are
yes.
locals, and they say, "No, no, look at that wall. That wall's pathetic. I mean, a little fox could come and run up on your wall and it would fall over, buddy. Just give up now." And so when we were putting the structure and the framework together for our SMART goal worksheet, was we know those people are going to come along, but we need some tools in our back pocket to say no. Because look at my progress sheet. Look at my progress sheet. I've been chasing down my dreams like I'm hunting for a meal for my family. And I can tell you that, for the last 6 weeks, I've written down here that I'm accomplishing my goals, and every day I'm one step closer. And that person will say, "Oh man, well, maybe you could help me," or they'll just leave and stop bothering you because they see that you got some arrows in your quiver.
Indeed. So, Mr. Michael, have any author shared a goal setting framework that inspired you a new smart system?
Hmm. Well, not specifically in terms of like having those goal lists, but what a lot of the authors, well, I'll take James Allen for example. That's an older book, that As a Man Thinks and As a Man Thinketh is the name of the book. And so it wasn't so much the goals, but it was something that I learned through the course of time, that if I had the stinking thinking, I wasn't going to get where I wanted to be. And that so that's one example of our thoughts become our words and our habits. And just hearing what other people have gone through, like a lady, Jessica Morris, that I met through Podmatch. She talked about her upgrowing and the challenges that she had, and from going over what she's written and seeing her stories, you realize that, what, I am possible. It is possible. And it's that human nature, that either we tear ourselves down or we tear people down. And so what I've learned from more than a few authors is that ability that we have to be persistent and dedicated, and to be able to eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Mm, indeed. Totally agree with you, Mr. Michael. What feedback
Yes.
from your audience most influenced the design of the smart goal sheet?
Ah, I would say that the age brackets that we have, our main demographic is 24 to 44. And we have a lot of men listen to our podcast, and feedback that we've received was, they want us to keep going. They love our content, and uh, they like the bite-sized parts of it, but they needed that encouragement, that it was possible for them not to repeat the patterns of the past, or not to repeat the patterns of their family. We had one fellow that was talking about, my whole family, we were turning wrenches, getting our hands dirty, getting grease monkey vibes. And I just didn't want that for my future. I needed something different. And family members were saying, no, that's not who we are. We don't go to college. We don't go to university. We wrench on cars and we or motorbikes, and it's that the gasoline diesel fueled lifestyle of working away from home 2 weeks at a time, coming home for 6 or 14 days if you're lucky, usually 6 for some people, and they appreciated the message that we have, and they wanted some sort of structure that would help them focus on a new avenue in life and a new way to grow their family and their future.
Indeed, for the future itself. And Mr. Michael, before
Yes.
we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other
Yes.
podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in fifth season too. Geography 101 in fourth season, Love Letters in third season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101, Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Michael, how can the audience test drive this new smart goal sheet, and what's your hope for and how it impact their lives?
Yes. Well, definitely head over to 5ampodcast.com. You can also email, well, you could email me directly at hello at 5ampodcast.com. What I hope that people will take away from this is, you know, that phrase, a rising tide raises all boats. And
Yes.
my wife and I love being in the harbor. We love being on the water and around boats. And we know that if we can make the difference in one person's life by helping them to achieve something that they thought was impossible, or they've been told that they're not possible, that you're not going to amount to much. And what we hope is that people will engage with our content, get the workbook, which will be out in the probably the next 10 to 15 days, hopefully, and be able to chart a course. One of the things that I have always loved is maps. I've got all kinds of charts for boats and different bodies of water. I've got maps for many, many different places. And even as a boy, I loved studying maps. Old ones, new ones, didn't matter to me. And so this is able to give people a framework and a map that they actually create themselves for where they see themselves in the future.
Mr. Michael Klassen, thank you so much for sharing your podcast to the world. Thank you so much for
Yes.
sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support 5 a.m. podcasts?
Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, honestly, well, Daniel, I got to say thanks for having me on because it's been a pleasure to be here and chat with you. And I love your work as well. But definitely come on over to 5ampodcast.com. You can look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, of course. Even on X, we're there.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Michael Klassen, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering episode to come, or episodes to
Yes,
come, for 5 a.m. podcast. And
that's
who
right.
knows, a book also will come, right, Mr.
Oh, yes.
Michael?
Oh,
For
we've got a
sure.
couple in the works. Yeah, you betcha.
Yes. You are most welcome to come back and let's talk about it on book 101 review.
Oh, yeah. That sounds
Please.
good.
Yes, people, again, let's support Mr. Michael Klassen, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering upcoming books to come, more and more empowering
Yes.
episodes to come. So, Mr. Michael, thank you so
Yes.
much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. It's been great, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.